Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today, as this is a Monday podcast episode where we focus on a particular astrological topic or theme. And today we will be discussing part 3 in our Mars series, as Mars stations direct on February 23rd at 17 degrees of Cancer and proceeds ahead after his extended retrograde journey that started back on December 6th. We did a part 1 on this topic, as well as a part 2, as Mars has been through both the early degrees of Leo and then basically the second half of Cancer territory in your chart. Now, as he stations direct on February 23rd at 8:59 p.m. Eastern Time, Mars comes to a standstill at 17 degrees 1 minute of Cancer. And this is where he is treading water, gathering strength for the return through the retrograde journey that he's been on, the energy of understanding more about what's been operating unconsciously within him, especially at an emotional level, and gaining new wisdom and insights into what he needs and who he is at his emotional core. In the previous 2 podcasts, we went into some of the deeper layers of Cancer, how Cancer is our first unconscious connection to a mother figure or a paternal figure in our lives. It's how we feel safe. It's where we go when we need nurturing and comfort. It's the energy of listening to how you feel, honoring what's going on within you. The Cancer energy can repress or hold back itself when it doesn't feel safe. The Cancer energy is also highly sensitive at times and is picking up a lot in the environment, feeling into it, trying to digest it or understand it. This is also where the Cancer energy is not only highly sensitive, but feels things at a more personal level and at a more emotional level. Cancer also relates to your first emotional imprints when you were younger. Those energies you felt within the family unit, in your home environment, your first impressions of connecting to your parents and your siblings, what it was like growing up in your household, what it meant to come home, and how that established a foundational understanding of what home means for you. The Cancer energy is cardinal water, and it means we're meant to be developing and growing our emotional maturity, our emotional foundation. We're meant to be evolving into new ways of expressing ourselves and honoring how we feel that keeps pace with our growth in other areas of life. So meaning your emotional maturity is growing alongside your intellect, your physical body, your spiritual self. Our emotional energies are also where we are accepting what we feel and trusting ourselves, even when there is no external validation, or perhaps even when there's big misunderstandings. That Cancer energy wants to be understood and validated, but first that comes from within. That is going within to say, this is what is coming up for me. This is my emotional truth in the moment, in the situation. This is what I need to take care of myself. The Cancer energy can be very accommodating, giving, supportive, and the energy can flow out more than it flows in. So part of the journey through Cancer is self-regulation, understanding where your emotional energy goes out, but ensuring that you have enough to give yourself and that you also have others in your life who give back to you, who know you at a more personal level, who know what you need, what is important to you, and who understand your emotional process and self. And because this is often quite private energy, it could be that this is an area of your life where you have a select few who get you, or you only allow a certain number of people into your home, into your personal space. And that is something that you value and need, so you're more selective about who has access to that part of your world. In previous episodes discussing the Mars retrograde, we also went into attachment styles and how that is part of the Cancer energy, the desire to to connect and exchange. The desire to be known is strong for Cancer. And so this can bring up your unconscious emotional attachment style, as well as what you're healing or understanding about what you need to feel emotionally safe with others. So Mars has been stirring in these Cancer themes. It could feel like you've been processing emotions from the past out of the blue. You get triggered and you realize it relates to your childhood or a part of yourself that you haven't fully met or welcomed. This Mars energy can bring us into the discomfort of emotions that we don't always know what to do with. And it can feel like you don't want to face it. You don't want to look at it. That's because the Cancer energy can be both passive and assertive. When the energy is charged up, that Cancer energy will take it on and meet things as they are. But often the energy has to rise enough to get to that point. So then the Cancer energy is more passive, withheld, hidden, and internal around what you're really sensing, feeling, thinking, and wanting. In addition to Mars being uncomfortable here in the watery, emotional realms of Cancer, Mars is also out of bounds. And that means he swam too far. He swam away from the typical parameters. Now, Mars or any planet being out of bounds means it has moved either further north or further south. It's typically 23 degrees or more equator. And more specifically, it's called the obliquity of the ecliptic. And as with all energies in astrology and astronomy, they are in movement, shifting, and changing. And so the current out of bounds declination is around 23.4 degrees, either north or south of the ecliptic plane. Basically, it's another measurement of the planets and how far or how close they are to Earth. And when we look at a planet that's out of bounds, it basically means it's on its own. It is more free, wild, unexpected, unpredictable. It has moved past the typical range of motion. And so this means that Mars has swam further away and ventured into more territory than perhaps he expected. So if we were to break it down a little bit more, this is where Mars retrograde in Cancer has really gone into some personal depths related to Cancer themes, related to family issues, his genealogy, lineage, especially the maternal line of energies, what he has absorbed, picked up, and learned from his family of origin, as well as what he has created or is creating in his life around family, home base, private matters, and how all of it affects him at a core level. So this is a Mars that's actually been holding back and internally processing what he truly feels to the point of discomfort, pain, hurt, sorrow, shame, loss, guilt. All of the deeper, perhaps hidden emotions have been tapped or are meant to be understood. They're meant to be realized here so that there can be deeper personal awareness around what fuels him and where his emotional body is based. Because this could be a realization of, wow, my emotional energy is stuck in my sense of self when I was 8 or 9 years old. Or wow, my emotional responses or what's coming up for me are actually taking me to a memory when I was 28 or 29. I'm just throwing out examples here, but this is where Mars is digging into his own past and realizing what needs to change. And that's part of the gifts of Cancer, is that we're guided into emotional turmoil in order to change it. And so this is going to be, as Mars stations direct to go forward, a time of deeper self-understanding and a willingness to make changes as needed, especially internally and emotionally. Now, I want to bring in an anecdotal story here that a friend of mine shared with me about a month ago. She is a very wise counselor. She does a lot of therapy work and healing work with both men and women. And she shared with me that over the past 2 to 3 months, her calendar has been filled with mostly men. And it's the first time that this has occurred in the 12 years she's been doing this. She's like, I'm just meeting with men for so many things. She's like, and it's amazing because they're wanting to change. They're getting it. They're understanding it. They're showing up. They're doing all this amazing work. And of course, this is just simply one person, right, in one corner of the world. And this is her experience of her clients and what's growing and evolving. And she was sharing with me that there was one client who found that he kept going to the fridge to reach for a beer more often than not. And he didn't like that. And he didn't like the weight gain. He didn't like the sense of addiction. He didn't like how it felt. And so she guided him to approach it as every time you open the fridge and you reach for a beer, just say what you're feeling out loud. Just say one word. As you reach for the beer, what is the feeling that's driving you? And she said he kept saying sad. I'm sad. And over the course of 2 weeks, and with the ongoing healing work he was doing, he no longer was going to the fridge. He was no longer reaching for that beer, and he was tapping into, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's motivating me. And then, of course, the alcohol being a way to disassociate, ignore, escape, numb the sadness, numb the feelings. And so she said that has been one of the most awesome discoveries that has worked for many of her masculine clients, especially in the one-on-one environment. She also works with a lot of couples. And so, of course, astrologically, you look at this Mars retrograde and how it's requiring us to face ourselves, to face our potential new strengths, to move into the parts of ourselves that we wanted to escape or move away from or deny, and understand that there's important, beautiful gems of wisdom there to tap into. So whenever I talk to her, she's like, it's just amazing. She's like, I've never seen it like this before. I've never seen so many men, masculine men, reaching out to really do work and to really work with me and understand what they're ready to shift and grow. And she's like, and they do it so fast. She's like, the masculine grows and shifts so fast. And I just thought that was so awesome to hear that I have to share it, because these stories can be hidden, or you wouldn't normally come across them. You wouldn't hear people sharing this openly or willingly on social media, for example, or maybe amongst your friends or friend group. But what is happening is that a part of our consciousness is feeling ready and willing and strong enough to look at areas of ourselves, especially our emotional selves, and to face it, to move into it, to acknowledge it, to love it, accept it, and welcome it. And that's also how the Cancer energies grow. The Cancer energies are designed to be welcomed and to flow in, to be held and understood. And then they especially feel safe enough to blossom, expand, and grow. So as Mars stations direct at 17 degrees of Cancer and moves forward, this Mars is going to have a lot of support from planets in Pisces. There are going to be numerous interactions, especially the first 2 weeks of April, that Mars in Cancer trines the planets and points in Pisces. So before I jump ahead to April, just so you know, so again, Mars stations direct February 23rd and hangs out here at 17 degrees of Cancer for a while. And this is where that Mars is returning back to where he came from. He swam far away. He swam out of bounds. Now he is treading water, exhausted, worn out, but deeply shifted and changed. And that is one of the overall higher intentions of a Mars retrograde, as well as a Venus retrograde. Because they don't happen every year, they're highlighting and focusing in on where you're ready to grow next. But that growth comes because of a review process, because of a deeper understanding around your unconscious, things you want to change, things you no longer want to do or accept, how you want to move forward in a new, fresh way. So this is where Mars embarks upon his return, but he returns differently. He has changed at an emotional level, and throughout most of March, Mars is still processing. Mars will have exact connections with the outer planets in April. Also in March is when we have the Aries equinox, where the sun enters Aries and begins a new zodiac cycle that unfolds over 12 months. And when the sun enters Aries, then that gives more prominence to Mars because Aries is ruled by Mars. So there are going to be shifts here throughout March where Mars gains strength emotional maturity and wisdom. He's also willing to take responsibility for how he feels, how he behaves, how he acts, and what he wants to choose next going forward. And as he does that, he does actually have 2 days where he interacts with the sun in Pisces through a trine. The sun in Pisces at 17 and 18 degrees on March 8th and March 9th is where this Mars, now direct in Cancer, will feel the strengthening power of the sun. Also in March, he will have a square to Chiron in Aries. That square unfolds March 25th to March 28th at 21 and 22 degrees. This is going to highlight the injury that Mars has been healing. It's a checking in point, sort of like a post-surgery office visit where you come back and speak to the healer to check in on your process and progress, to look at where the wound might need more care and attention. This also could be a turning point for Mars, as he's aware that it's okay to say what hurts and where it hurts, and that doesn't make him less than. In fact, he could even feel more comfortable in that opening of his vulnerabilities. So when Mars in Cancer squares this Chiron in Aries at 21 and 22 degrees, there could be a sense of, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm aware. I'm taking care of myself. I'm honoring it. And the square can signify a trigger comes up, that something is a recall or a memory of what you've been through or what you've experienced. But now that Mars is direct, he's meant to be more loving and kind to himself, as well as more self-accepting by that square to Chiron in Aries. Now, after that interaction, Mars moves ahead and throughout April is going to have some supportive trines here to the planets in Pisces. So specifically, Mars is going to trine Saturn in Pisces at 24 degrees 56 minutes. April 6th, there's also a trine to Venus retrograde in Pisces at 25 degrees. And at the same time, Mars will also be sextiling Uranus in Taurus at 24 degrees 57 minutes. So here we have an interaction between not only Saturn sextiling Uranus, which is a big deal because you have these two outer planets sextiling to create new structures amongst the changes. So there's endings happening with the strong Pisces influence of this time, and Uranus and Taurus is bringing in some solutions of what to do with the pieces, how to restructure, how to move it ahead, new ways to look at everything that's being dismantled or shattered. There is a cohesiveness here that can come together. And then enters Mars. And this Mars in Cancer, working with both Saturn in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus at the beginning of April, is adding in more of what we want to do differently, where we want the energies to grow, what feels right. And that's part of the frequency that Mars in Cancer is owning. What feels correct? What intuitively feels good to you? And how do you effectively use the energy to be more powerful and to stand up for what you want? Mars in Cancer doesn't typically do that very well. This is not your typical warrior or fighter, but this is a very deep feeler, and he's aware of what the people feel, what's going on under the surface. He's connected to his home, his community, his loved ones, and his needs. So there's energy here at the beginning of April that is going to show us what we do want, what is necessary to fight for, and that it could very well work easily within these changes that are unfolding. So as April begins, this Mars is also going to have opportunities to check in with his emotional responses, what he's feeling, how much he's grown, shifted, and changed. And after this trine to Saturn in Pisces and sextile to Uranus and Taurus, he could feel that there's really been a deeper change and that all of the intensive personal work is paying off. He then goes on to trine Mercury in Pisces, April 10th to 12th, followed by a trine to the North Node in Pisces, April 11th to 13th, and these trines are occurring at 27 degrees of Pisces. So when we look at the energy as a whole, Mars is being guided to let go of previous versions of himself, immature responses, ways that he hasn't taken responsibility for his emotional world and what he needs. He's connecting with all these Pisces planets and points to feel supported in his own growth and emotional development. The trine to Mercury in Pisces brings about what he doesn't need to carry, what no longer works for him, what he can diminish and mentally close out. And the trine, the last trine here to the North Node in Pisces at 27 degrees is hopeful and optimistic about what awaits him as he moves forward with more command over his emotional world. There's a sense of greater trust in himself, as well as really understanding the value of intuition, and that it's okay to trust those softer, quieter parts of ourselves, that in fact there's going to be more of a desire to do so after this intense reprogramming journey. So the Mars energy is really understanding now more of the value of what he feels, that he doesn't have to hide it or keep it back. He doesn't have to suppress his emotional truth or what he needs. He also doesn't have to overgive to others with the hope that they will then give to him in response. Sometimes that Cancer energy will assume that others know what you're feeling or what you need, but rather you have to be clear in communicating it, as well as clear in understanding it for yourself. So I feel that there's going to be more of a connection to not only what Mars is truly feeling and needing, but there's a new level of personal ownership, personal responsibility, and a sense of I'm going to share more of who I am. Even if previously that felt vulnerable or it opened me up in a way I wasn't comfortable with, now I understand the value of what I need, and I don't want to repeat previous habits. I don't want to go back to that previous version of myself that I've been working through purging and cleansing. I want to show up renewed. And so this is why there's a real return here in the Mars energy. Mars is returning to himself, feeling that he's different, that he's shifted, and is being beautifully supported by these planets in Pisces, Uranus and Taurus, and the North Node in Pisces. And then we have a more seismic shift that occurs in late April. Now, April 18th is when Mars re-enters Leo. And as soon as he does so, he has, for the first time ever, a trine to Neptune, now in Aries at 0 degree. A spiritual shift, a new sense of self. In the fire signs, this is confidence, creative, strength, motivating, a desire to live life in a new way on his own terms. A sense of renewal is heightened here, and that trine to Neptune in Aries at 0 degrees. Neptune has only been in Aries for less than a month when Mars trines this planet of spiritual growth, intuitive development, and divine timing. Neptune is in Mars's home sign of Aries. So here he's getting spiritual confirmation that the changes are worth it, and they're going to lead him forward in ways he can't see yet, but he can feel it. He can feel the momentum, the excitement. He can feel that he's really deeply changed. And there might even be a sense that he's elevated beyond his own self-expectations, and that a core level of his self-identity is also being deeply recalibrated. Mars in Leo trines Neptune in Aries at 0 degrees, April 18th to April 21st. And you could feel that surge of newness and your own spiritual growth in ways that are hard to describe. This is very creative, positive energy. It's truly shifting timelines into a higher expression of who you're declaring yourself to be now. Then this Mars moves on and has his third and final opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. It's exact at 3 degrees 48 minutes on April 26th. Now, this is going to be that final standoff, but Mars is different. Mars is renewed. He has higher spiritual maturity and wisdom. If he's really been doing the work, if he's really been on his own personal self-evaluation journey, he's going to approach this third and final opposition to Pluto in Aquarius in a new way, with new self-respect, a new understanding that it's okay to be evolving in these times. In fact, it's required. So here we have this Pluto in Aquarius bringing in future potentials, revealing what has to deeply shift for the betterment of this Mars journey, that where he's going needs to be from a heart space, needs to be from a place of living in the courage to be yourself so that you can show up and share that energy, those gifts, those talents in the collective from a place of expanded awareness. Previously, the Mars in Leo has been perhaps too self-focused, too self-absorbed, only concerned with what benefits him, what brings about attention or recognition, where he's very limited in his scope and in his awareness. But this third and final opposition to Pluto in Aquarius can be that checking in point around his own growth trajectory, where he's saying, okay, I get it. It's not just me, it's us. What can I create and share that improves all of us, that is a gift to the world, that can be received and shared beyond what I previously expected? So this could be a time of these amplification of creative ideas and concepts, a whole new way to approach what you want and how you're willing to go for it. There could be new courage here as Mars returns to Leo after that trine from Neptune and Aries, and now he is willing to integrate more spiritual practices, higher ways of trusting himself. He's ready to also temper the fiery bursts of anger, frustration, immediacy that the fire signs often feel. There could be a softening of sorts, perhaps an unexpected softening into deeper self-love and self-confidence that allows him to trust himself more while moving towards what he wants. This is big renewal here for Mars. This certainly applies to masculine energy. This could be the rising of new forms and expressions of divine masculine energy. This can also be a regenerated, more healed divine masculine that is ready to lead, ready to step into more leadership roles, have stronger self-assertion, because the intention is to benefit the many, to benefit the whole. It's not going back into how does this work for me and what do I gain from it? It's looking at what can I do that's an offering that strengthens others, inspires them, and benefits many. There's a true masculine leadership energy that can emerge here in the higher expressions of this Mars return. Of course, it all comes down to intention, the healing work that one has taken on and come to understand, the new levels of intentionality and commitment that come forth. This can be a fine-tuned Mars who's clear on what he will invest energy in and what he's stepping away from. More decisive, more commanding, more charismatic and powerful as well. And yet it's based on what he has deeply met in himself that was previously held back or repressed, that kept him from full ownership of who he is. I also see this Mars return as the Mars energy now welcoming and integrating more of his own divine feminine self, really owning his intuition, allowing his heart to be strong, clear, and present, and coupling that with the powerful force of divine masculine energy. So again, this can be a rising of divine masculine energy that is healed and whole, especially as it has deeply integrated more of those divine feminine gifts and abilities. This can also then signify union energies, new partnerships, new connections. This can be Mars more in the fullness of his heart space, open to love, which is ruled by that Leo energy, but also connected to the vulnerable aspects of love that the Cancer energy brings up. So as we raise our own vibrations of self-love, that of course changes and shifts the energies in our aura and what we send out and attract in. So there can be some resets here in connections, love relationships, partnerships, friendships, based on the work and evolution of the individual. Now, in the second half of April, as Mars is undergoing these significant shifts and integrations, we also then will have the completion of Venus retrograde, as Venus retrogrades until April 13th and will station direct at 24 degrees of Pisces, then move ahead. So that means that the divine feminine energies that have been experiencing the Venus retrograde cycle are also being reset as she is being more deeply connected to the Pisces energies that involve embodying her soul's love, compassion, forgiveness, unity consciousness, and goddess frequencies. So I just want to add that in there since we're pulling in these relationship dynamics, as both Mars and Venus have their own retrograde journeys that they've been on as 2025 begins. As we move into late April, the energy is resetting as well as evolving. Now, it's not until May that this Mars clears his retrograde shadow. May 5th is when Mars moves back through 6 degrees of Leo, which is where his station retrograde began way back on December 6th. So you can see here over the course of 5 months that this Mars has been on a personal experience, that personal internal journey of getting more into his heart space, connecting with his internal power, and working through what has held him back, especially again when he was younger, maybe in your wonder years. Any of those first experiences too that were emotionally jarring or damaging, hurtful, painful, whatever the case may be. This could have been a retrograde journey that helps you clear and move through any of those core experiences. And as we move into May, the energy starts to feel fresh, new, there's more momentum, and the shifts are going to feel more apparent. So the Mars return is underway, and the shifting begins February 23rd as Mars stations direct at 17 degrees 1 minute of Cancer, moves ahead and has numerous experiences with the energies in Pisces, showing him what to let go of. It's in the past, it's over, you can move on. Just take the wisdom of it forward. Be forgiving of yourself and others. Give yourself compassion for what you didn't know at the time, and allow yourself to now move into this new chapter with renewed strength and confidence in your heart, your creative expression, your sense of self, and what you want next. Now, I will keep touching on these themes in my Wednesday podcasts. That's where we look at the weekly energies of our time. So I'll be touching on each of these Mars transits as they unfold, February, March, April, and May. But I hope this provides a good overall understanding of the big changes that will come about about because of what you've been moving through and processing. The universe rewards, the universe supports you in your choices and how you want to grow. The universe wants you to evolve, and the divine loves that. So there's divine timing at play here, especially with the strong Pisces influence, but remain hopeful and trusting that you're on your way, that what you have done does matter, and that the universe will bring about those rewards and developments in beautiful ways. You can always go back and listen to part 1 and part 2 of this Mars journey in case that helps you put together more of the pieces, as well as what's been unfolding in your chart. As a reminder, the Mars retrograde has happened from 6 degrees of Leo back to 17 degrees of Cancer. And this is where you are digging in to the deeper consciousness of what you want, how you go about asserting yourself and standing up for yourself, how you make moves and express yourself, especially physically, and how to not be held back by any of those past memories or experiences. As always, thank you so much for joining me for this Monday podcast episode. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday with a new show. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for subscribing and sharing this podcast as well with others who could benefit from these insights, even if they don't know astrology. It's my intention to be able to speak the language of astrology in a comprehensive, easy to understand way to benefit as many people as possible. You can find out more about my latest astrology programs and courses at mollymccord.online, and you can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Take good care, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.